Hello and welcome to Dance for the Culture podcast. This is the podcast where we talk about all things dance and how dance has allowed us to create, connect, educate, preserve, explore, and live proudly in who we are. I am your host, Lindsay Renee Benton. I am a dancer, choreographer, movement director, educator, creative consultant, and founder of Dance for the Culture. And of course, a lover of all things art. Today's guest is none other than LaTasha, also known as Tasha Barnes. She is an internationally recognized and awarded dancer, choreographer, educator, performer, cultural ambassador, and tradition bearer of Black American social dance. Originally from Richmond, Virginia, she currently is an associate professor of dance at Arizona State University. She is globally celebrated for her musicality, athleticism, and joyful presence throughout the cultural traditions she bears. House, hip hop, waacking, vernacular jazz, and Lindy Hop. Please join us today as we enjoy this conversation with LaTasha Barnes. Well, I have the lovely, incredible, talented, multifaceted LaTasha Barnes here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Y'all. Okay, so my first question is, what does it feel like to be viral literally almost every week? So two of the clips that I actually sent my mother. And when I tell you, I waited on the phone. I waited on the phone because I knew her reaction was going to be explosive. And she was literally screaming. One was from Lindy Focus.
Yeah.
And the other one was from...
The shiny suit one.
Yes, the shiny suit one.
Yeah.
And the other one is what you were calling an ancestral...
Access.
Yeah. And that one was from the...
Summer Dance Forever.
Event.
Yeah,
so what is it... I mean, every time I look, there's somebody that's referencing your work, whether it's the research, whether it's performance. Like, what is that like?
I don't know. I really don't know. It's surreal isn't a complete enough word. Mm-hmm. Particularly having an understanding of the algorithm, how it functions, and how to quote unquote play the social media game, which I actively refuse to do.
You don't need to.
But then it's things like this that I still, yeah. And actually, I think there was a resharing of the clip from Summer Dance.
Yes.
That just went out for another event that I'm going to be contributing to in May called Tap Water Jam. Mm-hmm. I'm so excited to be there.
Yes.
But they composed a picture and then sent 2 videos of each educator, each judge person that's going to be there. And the organizer sent me a private message and was like, so this is the Tasha effect. And I was like, what? And the video didn't come up, but then later he sent it to me. He just did a scrolling of all of the shares from his post, or from their post, excuse me. And it just kept going and going. I was like,
yeah.
That's a thing.
The Tasha effect.
Wow. I'm honestly still reconciling it. It's humbling, and also deeply encouraging to make sure not only that how people are in conversation with my work is, I don't say correct, but be accurate, is a better word. And also, it's a bit of a challenge to me sometimes, especially when something from like 10 years ago gets shared, and I'm like, all right, let me let's get something new out there.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, that's a little bit to the athlete in me that's like, okay, that was my last one. Let me do something else. Let me contribute something more. So what my current embodiment about my research and, you know, the spaces I'm in and the people that I'm engaged with is also reflected in some of these viral movements. So
yeah,
it's just another way to share kind of the research in the spaces.
And I would also say that, you know, it is not necessarily this often that someone goes viral on the internet these days for the work that they're doing, the work that they're actively doing, and the work that they want people to know them for.
Yeah.
And so I mean, again, so I'm going to be one of those ones that continues to share, because it's just, it's beautiful. Yes. And so, you know, I want to, I mean, you know, this is what we have. We have social media, and I'm so glad that the Tasha effect is represented. And you know, you have been working on your research as the Jazz Continuum for a good long while.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
And those people who have been, you know, able to actually experience it in person and not just from the viral videos that are, you know, circulating. But what was the beginning or the catalyst of creating this work?
In a lot of my conversations with our dear friend, Dr. K. Roberts, I've come to the realization that it wasn't just when I started to cognitively situate my, I guess you would say in DJ terms, like my crossfader understanding of musics and movement forms, but it really was a reflection of my upbringing. Like the Sunday gatherings, the weekly gatherings with my family were that. You know, somebody would start with some form of music, and whomever got ignited by what they were sharing offered something to the space sonically that then offered something movement-wise from somebody who was also in their generation, and then somebody's cousin or friend that they brought with them to the house offered something in alignment with something else, and then my aunts would get up and, you know, show them how it really was supposed to be done, and then great grandma would come in and show everybody how it was supposed to be done, and then she would want something, so we would switch back to, you know, her music, the jazz or James Brown or whatever she was on that day, and it just kept cycling in and around itself, and it was just a beautiful swirling of everybody's joy centers, of everybody's points of challenge, of everybody's points of their highest fashion, or everybody's most, I guess you could say, most cherished vision of themselves and of their generation. And just trying to share the best, or maybe the silliest, or to do something that was going to jab at one of the other family members for something that they did. It was, and then that was always the time where so much information about everybody came out. Like my uncles coming together to do a step that I've seen them do many times, but then them saying, "Oh man, we never get that turn right." Butch, talking about my dad, Butch, when you and Al made this up, and I'm like, wait a minute. So no, y'all just happen to be real dope at it, but right. So it was already teaching me like full contextual awareness of even the things that you might be skilled in. Like you may be good at these things. You may understand the music that it goes with, and you may understand how to even embellish the music and the movement. But when you get a chance to be in the company of those who pioneered the thing or innovated the thing, it does something different to your spirit. It offers something different to this thing that you already carry. And it was just, it's beautiful to recognize that genius, that brilliance was just my family. Like they were there. It was just always there.
You know, it's interesting that you bring up family, because as you're recalling how all of this came to be, I'm envisioning some of those gatherings with my family members. And I'm seeing certain uncles who, you know, they do these same steps. Yes, it's the same movement language, this vernacular that that is very much like recognizable. Like, and then when I start seeing it in other people, I'm like, oh yeah, they were probably born and had, you know, in the same era, had some of the same similar experiences. And so it's funny because we met at Dance Grenada in 2023.
Incredible Dance Grenada Festival. Call your travel agent, you should go.
Immediately. And I think it was like the last day of the festival. Yeah, and it was the dinner, and we had been like, you know, hip to hip nearly the entire time. And it wasn't until you mentioned some things about your previous career experiences that I was like, wait a minute. So, you know, and I'll let you share, but my uncle, who worked in the Secret Service, my father's baby brother, for, oh goodness, I don't know how long, for years in communications, there was something that you said, and I was like, my uncle was working during that time too. Your eyebrow went up, and you asked who my uncle was, and I said Tommy Benton, and it was like the world stood still for a second because it was just, you know, explosive revelation as far as how we were connected, not just through dance, but even just some of the
through family.
You literally.
Yeah. Your uncle, Tommy Benton, is part of my, what we call ourselves, our Waacking family. That's a White House Communications Agency family. And I think, I'm trying to remember I think you were asking me a question about how I ended up getting to dance from the military. And I briefly just started talking about how dance was always present,
right,
even in my military experience. And that was a large part of how we all just introduced each other to each other's cultures and made space for us to have genuine friendships in and around the work that we had to do in service to this administrative role. That was so huge.
Right.
That role being the office of the President of the United States. And in the course of that, I was just mentioning some of the spaces and places we've been, some of the presidents I had been in service to. And
it's like,
you're like, wait, you know, presidential service. You're like, yeah, my uncle served this one and that one. Were you around? And it's like, well, I mean, if we were around at the same time, I would have known him because I, was director of the Network Command and Control Center and, had to take looks at manifests and things like this and help plan things for trips. And so, yeah, possibly. And then you said his name and I was like, yeah, seen that name on many a manifest. To which you texted your uncle and he was like, Sergeant Barnes? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, small world.
Very small world.
And so like it also, another layer of our familiar connection is my father's a visual artist. And so as it relates to synergy and collaboration, that was something that I saw in my house every day of my life. My mother would be singing. She has an amazing voice. She sounds like Dionne Warwick. And my father would be drawing or painting. And I'd be somewhere in between, probably dancing, moving and or doing a little bit of all of those things.
Quite literally dancing in between.
Yes, literally. And so the idea of collaboration and the understanding of how visual art, music, and dance went together was just a part of how I lived.
Yeah.
And so, as I'm listening, we're talking and you started talking about visual art, I was like, wait a minute.
Just all the connections.
Yeah.
And of course, all of this manifested and facilitated once again by our beautiful friend, Dr.
Roberts. And so as you have traversed all of these different spaces, obviously, in your profession, how has visual art then showed up as a part of your practice, as a part of your research, and just the experimental elements that eventually became the Jazz Continuum?
Wow. So, Thank you, Lindsay. Making me reflect on all things. I would say it's deeply multifaceted as well, that artistic aspect of myself, because it crosses over not just into traditional visual media. So my primary mediums were charcoal and pastel. But maybe I just like to get messy. But also fashion, which I don't really share often with people. But
secrets I need to see, because you already know her shoe collection, we've been having conversations. So I mean, yeah, we'll get into that. Yes.
But the beginning of it, particularly with the Jazz Continuum, I believe came together on the fashion front first. And the very first iteration was jeans, a fitted shirt, and a blazer. But the blazer was literally meant to be a physical manifestation of the things that we're aiming to encapsulate. Not hold, but just wear, put on. And what was the most crazy about this was I had a 90s vintage blazer, silk blazer that looks very 90s. Like, I'll have to send you photos of it.
Please.
But it's in its kaleidoscope of colors and patterns. Every person in the collective of the very first one happened to choose a color that exactly matched that multicolored jacket. And it just, the synergy of how everyone just kind of gravitated to a color that they felt spoke to them, and like the energy that they were bringing to the space, then gave me permission to speak a little bit more towards the spiritual side of that, which was the reflection of the chakras. And so this just continued. And as the costuming changed, my intention with that did not. So it was constantly me assigning to people a color based on their spiritual contribution to the space for each iteration, which then resulted in a rainbow of colors on the stage. But in that reflection of where I wanted it to go, to showcase more of that, I also had the opportunity through a continuation of the residency, through wonderful friends and collaborators at Works in Process, Guggenheim, to further cultivate some other artists to be contributors to the Jazz Continuum, and just to lean more into letting people show me who they are. I asked for, and I forget now the artist who did this in the 80s, but 80s babies showing up. But a wonderful artist that did these really great, like gigantic drop cloth paintings that were meant to encapsulate the energy of a particular thing that he was meditating on, or other facets of his culture that he wanted represented in this way. And he would put paint on his hands and on his feet and just kind of move around the canvas, but all the while meditating and reflecting on this thing. So it was supposed to be a color representation and a movement representation of this point of focus. So I had the venue get us these giant drop cloths and this these different paints in these very vibrant colors, and I just set them up and I let everybody choose one color, and then I played music, and I did not give instructions. The only instructions were that we were going to step into the paint and step into the canvas. And when I played a house track, an Afrobeat track, and everybody just took off, like moving linearly, interestingly, across the surface. They might have shifted down, but they still just shifted down and then moved linearly again. Added some more of their color, went back to another spot, and then moved down. So it was, you could see like the yellow stayed over here, and then there was one yellow over here, and then there's one green pathway here, and another green pathway here, and another green pathway here. And it was just really, for me, as a scientist, as a researcher, telling about the spatial relationship of music for people, and also their kind of their intention and how they showed up. Because several of them just kept going and didn't reapply paint. Some of them wanted to make sure that where they stood was easily recognizable, so they kept reloading every time they did it. And then we had another cloth, and the same thing, had them wash their feet. We took a break, had some drinks. And then they loaded up on another round of paint, and I played jazz, and somehow the first person to start took off from the corner, just like before, but had a continuation of their ideas and just kept step pulsing and then doing break steps and other jazz routines that we did, but circularly on the canvas. And the others decided to join in the same way. And we're doing, the things that we've been exploring and learning together. And at one point, the entire collective was on the canvas in a circle, just tacking at each other. Wow. And then looking down, I was like, oh, we need more paint. And then getting more paint and continuing again. And it was just a beautiful swirl. And then we had one moment, one of the couples decided to swing out across the canvas. So there was this whole circularity and then this beautiful circular embodiment right in the very, very center of that exploration. And it was just really beautiful to give space for that other facet of how I want to see this work presented. So through the costuming and through this visual art exploration. And then, of course, those who have seen the work have seen the light fixture that we've designed that is meant to encapsulate the past, present, future, as well as a portal to self-actualization and ancestral actualization. So it lives in all the things. It
Oh my goodness.
comes to life in other things.
Wow. So I want to reflect for a moment, just back on, you brought up some of the catalyst of what your initial experiences were with dance and music, and how that showed up and was very evident in your family. During this process of creating, Jazz Continuum, and I know that it's progressed and evolved over the years. What are some of the aspects? Yes, you have been doing this work, okay? What are some of the aspects of those Sundays with your family that you still see reflected in what you experience now with your dance family on the road and on these tours in performing this?
Listen. I love those crazies more than words. More than words can express. Aside from my research intention with holding and creating, cultivating space with line dances, we each bring new line dances from our own communities every time we come back together. People add their own sauce to the line dances or to any of the TJC choreographed things that we've cultivated. But it's between that and just our desire to gather and to be together. Most people who know many jazz musicians know that the hang is the most critical part of the music making.
Yes.
And many presenters, I'm so grateful that it is a requirement, but they do still have to consent in order for it to move forward. So I'm grateful that they consent to the requirement of a week-long residency. It's not just a get in, prep, rep, show, and out. It really is a redeveloped offering every time we come together. And so us having space to share all the things that we've now remembered about ourselves or that we've rediscovered about our family, about our dance journeys. And gratefully, humbly, they allow me to enfold a lot of that into the offering. But this last iteration, just to give a taste, was so wonderfully able to have my sister, Chi, Charlene Smith, amazing dancer, part of the Ladies of Hip Hop Collective and an incredible educator at Pace University as well. And she was one of the primary reasons why I wanted to do the Jazz Continuum, actually. In 2020 when Swing Out, which the show is now Swing Out, but it was Swing 2020. There's no reason why we changed that name.
Oh, yes. Good change.
But in order to kind of keep the momentum going, not just for the audience, but for the brain trust and for the potential dancers in the work and the musicians, we cultivated this space called Swing Out 1-to-1. And it was on the each one teach one kind of methodology. And Chi, I convinced a lot of our student club dancers to apply. And they were matched with people to give them some deeper indoctrination into jazz, either music or movement-wise. And Chi was paired with me.
Yes.
But seeing her embody, even over Zoom, just because, and I have no qualms. I know it's because of her already varied and deep entrainment in the other dance traditions that she carries, that she was able to make adjustments and actually hold what jazz was requiring of her to be fully expressed. And of course, as she'll tell you too, she still, vacillates back and forth between like the stage performer thing sometimes and like sometimes a little more raw element or, as we would say, a more modern presentation of some of the traditional jazz rhythms. But her ability to negotiate, and that was always my aim, is to make space for us to negotiate this fully on stage, unapologetically. So it's just been that. But we were able to have Chi in on this one, and I've been so blessed to collaborate with her on so many things. But she's a double Dutch artist also. And so at one point in the lobby of the hotel, We had an Uno tournament, a pizza comparison because we had folks from Detroit and from Chicago, so there was a war.
Midwest,
yeah, the whole situation, as well as some other musical. I don't want to even say pontifications, like musical comparative conversations happening, and double dutch.
That sounds like a perfect after party. It really does.
Blackity blackest thing. I want to say the thing that we've ever done, but that's not true. It's just a continued manifestation of how unapologetically Black the Jazz Continuum space is and gives us space to be, even when we come on stage. And it's so beautiful to have other people support, like, the full expression of your Blackness. Like, we can sit over here in the corner and talk about the juxtaposition of Shakespeare with Ellington, because Ellington Wilson is coming up and like he did a whole suite on this, and then at the same time, hold that, it's my turn to jump.
Yes.
And then, by the way, draw 6. Like, what? It was just
amazing.
It was amazing.
I really, as a huge fan of Tasha Barnes, I really want to say thank you, because I feel like the way that you have maneuvered or navigated this space, you have made jazz so much more accessible for literally every generation that has the opportunity to experience you. And I think that it's actually making me tear up. I think that when I think about the layers of, my grandmother taught me time step. So that rhythm, that rhythm specifically is something that I got at a young age, not ever owning tap shoes up to that point. But, and I don't believe that she ever owned tap shoes, but to see how the interconnectedness of several generations being layered into not just how we've experienced jazz as the movement, the art, the literature, and the dance, but also how we're able to see it now.
Yeah. Based
on a lot of the work that you're doing. And I know that there's a huge team of people that have contributed. That have definitely contributed, but in terms of the vision and the mastermind action that has taken place, it is not an easy thing to take something that is often taken for granted, that is often bastardized, that is often watered down because of the parts that are not necessarily digestible for the masses, and to create access to it and in such a rich form. It is truly amazing. So I just want to say thank you. Yeah.
I'm gonna thank you.
Yes, receive that, please. And I also, want to know what, because I'm still thinking about this artwork, of course, and how, the visuals, the images that we connect to, the images that are put out, the images that we share of us based on our own processing and our own experience and our own enlightenment.
Yeah.
People need to see it.
Yeah, that part.
So yeah. So what is the next or another iteration of people being able to experience not just the performance, but the installation of some of these artifacts, because that is indeed what they are of this process, so that the richness of what you bring to this form has another layer of documentation. Yes.
First, really, thank you. I received it. Thank you. Yeah. I think I really, in order to properly facilitate this space and this experience, I recognized, or I believed to a degree, that I had to get out of the way. So even in my hyper type A regimented military achieving self, I, through some of my learned, I don't want to say coping mechanisms, adjustment mechanisms that I learned coming when I was exiting the military, turned off my goal setting in that hyper specified way that we, teach people to try to cultivate their lives with now. And I recognized I needed to turn that off in order for what the ancestors needed of me to come through more clearly. Because it's very easy for us to get in the way when we're excited and things start to happen. And I almost did. I did it because I almost got in the way. And now it is very clear that it has come back to the, I already gave it to you. Now, but you want us to do all the work? I'm like, oh, so, right. Okay. Yeah. And so now, in the consideration of it, there have been manifestations of things that I felt I wanted, like a fashion exhibit of the iteration of the Jazz Continuum. You heard that, y'all? Gratefully, the Kennedy Center has set us up for success in this. Yes. And did like a small installation showcasing one costume, but allowing me to have poster boards of the different other iterations so that people could see how it has grown to this visually explosive thing that it is now. And to have that in alignment with these giant canvases to showcase these moments of indoctrination for new generations of the Continuum Collective. Like, yeah, that's a little bit of it. And showcasing, having, this is the crazy one I didn't get to share with my musical director who I was meeting with earlier today, but a transcription of the soundscape. Yes. Is what I would like. Yes. It's going to be hard over the people yelling in the audience. But just to start to... That goes in there too. Yeah, just to cultivate some of that, to get that in notated, sheet music. One of my other great collaborators, A.L. Vilner, who's an amazing big band leader, who's the music director for Swing Out, my other work. Yes. He's done me the favor before just of showing me my crazy, of looking at me and transcribing my movement rhythmically. Oh. And then also saying to me later, like, WTF, like, why? But to have, some of my other collaborators have the opportunity to have sheet music that says, Goldie Bear, which is Brandon Nunez. And to see how they play, literally to see how they play, to get a visual representation of how they play.
Do you see why I'm saying she's making this accessible? Like in a way that we have not seen in terms of this magnitude. And I think that it's so important. And, I hope that not just on the performance stage, but I hope that in your ongoings of the process of doing all the things that you are being reciprocated in the ways that you need, because you are doing amazing work.
And just to continue that, like, it's the advancement of jazz and the advancement of the perspective of jazz, especially the Black gaze of unjazz. It's not just this big band sound. Right. It's house. It's hip hop. It's Jersey bounce. It's everything that we're cultivating now.
It's the line dances that I learned as a little girl in Ohio in the Midwest growing up. It's there.
It's all of it. And it's not a deprecation. And I know we have the challenge, is it Black American music? Is it jazz? I'm all for that conversation, whatever facet of that business we want to stand on. But for the instance of making it accessible and making people realize that it's been our saving grace, it's been surrounding us for a long time. And particularly, it's an African-American cultivation. It's an African-American experience. Yes. And I know looking upon what has happened to us here can be painful, but we can't continue to look over it for affirmation or for strength. Like, the strength of us is baked into jazz and continues to present itself in hip hop, in neo soul, in everything that we've cultivated from it. So we should respect it if we expect it to make space for us. Ooh. And that was my frustration. So I had to get out of the way and stop being angry about it. And Oh, right, it lives in, I should just let it live. Oh, I should make space for it to live in others. And for intergenerational folks to contribute to each other in the same way that I had this experience. Yeah, okay. So that for me, that is the Jazz Continuum, literally just a reflection of my and all of our lived experiences.
Tasha, I just, man. Yeah, no, this is exactly why, you know, when you see Tasha and people like Tasha, you have to say thank you, because you also make the work that I'm doing more accessible. And not that it's easy work, but it becomes easier.
Yeah.
You know, because you've done so much to help carry the load, so that it becomes lighter as more of us join in to committing to what we have to do in the mission. And so the last thing I'm going to ask you today, I think, is young Tasha watching her older relatives dancing, partying, grooving, doing what they did naturally, to the point where it was just conversational. Mm-hmm. What would you tell young Tasha now, at this point, having experienced that then, and also having a manifestation of that in the present now?
Mm. Honestly, I think the thing I would tell younger Tasha would be to tell them all how much you love them, and how much you love what they do. Yeah. I did, but thinking about how present they are with me all the time, like they know, but even in the jovial way that we do when someone does something dope, maybe I love you. Oh my God, like that's so dope. To really, to really tell them with my words. Yeah. Like in my movement, they could see that I enjoyed them because I would carry them.
Yes, always.
And not so much mimic, but they could see that I was processing and synthesizing everything that they were, but to tell them how much what they've cultivated, what they've created is loved, is respected, is more than enough. And see, me saying love has led me to the truth. And that this need, or this fallacy that the only way for us to be respected is through a Western lens was just that, a fallacy. Who they are, how they celebrated, how they structured an offering to each other, or performance, if you want to call it that, was more than enough. And it was powerful and lovely and incredible. And I loved it. I love being able to receive it and experience it. And to be of that.
And we love you. Those of you who have not seen the absolute sensational, incredible Tasha Barnes, she might be in a city near you or a country near you.
True story.
But also, we're going to let you all see just a little taste in a clip. Until next time. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I certainly hope that you have enjoyed today's conversation with LaTasha Barnes on Dance for the Culture podcast. As always, you are welcome to continue this conversation with us by hitting that subscribe button and continuing to follow us. And if you're looking for more ways to stay connected with us in our community, go to dancefortheculture.com. Until we create again.